Well, hello there. We're back for another episode of More People, More Problems, the best podcast around. Coming with all the hype. No, I'm just joking. It's a little
Loads
too
of
much
hype
hype, eh,
here.
Chels?
Oh
I
my
know.
word, for a
Okay,
Sunday
well, I
morning.
was you got to come in with some volume,
Really
where
hot.
it's what matters. So today we're going to talk about trauma bonding, which is one we brought up in another episode, and we've been excited to dig into it. So we're going to do that today. Maybe a little trigger warning, just because it is trauma bonding. If there's, if yourself has gone through trauma or have any belief that maybe it is, just be ready for that. If this isn't the episode for you, totally fine. Catch us next week. It'll be a nice, fun one. But we're going to get into it today. And so I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea, my wonderful co host, to jump into trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding. Okay, like first off, I'm not a clinical psychologist, so
Okay.
nobody take this as being any.
Disclaimer.
This is not a therapy session. You need to do your own exploration, but maybe we'll highlight a couple of things with regards to trauma bonding. And actually, funny enough, I referenced trauma bonding in a previous podcast, like Britt just said. Um, but I dug into it a little bit because it was kind of interesting, and I realized what I was referring to in terms of having my work bestie, so to speak. And like dealing with a really difficult situation in work together and really bonding and having that heightened emotional experience together and having brought us together is actually not trauma bonding. It's bonding over a shared trauma. So then I looked into trauma
Slight
bonding.
switch of the words, but very important clarification, isn't
it's
it?
it's super important because of course, like as anyone else would do, you start googling trauma bonding and I'm thinking that's what's going to come up, right? No, it
Yeah.
turns out that's not what comes up. um Trauma bonding is actually different in terms of it's a relationship. So this could be your a personal friendship, it could be a romantic relationship. We often see that. Could be a family relationship, a parent or a child dynamic, but we see it in professional relationships as well. So it's when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. Go ahead, Britt.
You have to be a no okay, 2 quick clarifying because I'm learning as we go. First of all, and actually background, Chelsea went to university for psychology, so this is, like, right up your wheelhouse. I just wanna
It's
plug
just
that.
fun for me. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I love seeing you, just, like, pike up, you know what I mean? Like, you're so excited, which is great. But first clarifying question, does it have to be, like, a certain depth of relationship, or is it really any relationship? Like, it's 2 people that are it could be a very basic relationship, could it be a really deep relationship, like romantic? It doesn't matter?
So it's interesting because when you describe it for a romantic relationship, it's usually like a very heightened experience of infatuation, and the person you're in the relationship with is someone who is devaluing you. You're getting rewards sometimes, and then they're treating you like crap, and then they're discarding you, and you're constantly looking for that little reward once in a while that you're going to get from that person. And if you describe it similarly to like a slot machine, people who are at the casino pulling the slots all day and spend all day, I don't know, spending loads of money, time, energy at the slots just to get like, $3 on a pull once in
Yeah.
a while. And then maybe occasionally you'll get a really big reward, but like very rarely does it ever happen. The experience with a narcissist in a relationship, like in a trauma bond like this, is someone who's constantly devaluing you, discarding you, giving you only little bits and pieces to keep you constantly holding on, waiting for that little reward. But almost always, it just never comes. And that person is constantly going to be in that same cycle with you.
And
So,
it's so interesting because, like, I've done a bit of research on like addiction and gambling addiction, and they talk about how you're always searching to get even. But the reality is you're never going to be even to your point. And it's like that addictive nature of seeking, I think, the validation, the confidence, the winning aspect of like, I'm going to even out. And in this trauma bonding relationship, like, it's a great example, metaphor, because you're not getting what you need. And one small little one is like, oh, now I have hope that I'm going to even
yes.
out. I'm going to change their mind. I'm going
Going
to,
to change them and it's going
yeah,
to be better and I'm going to get that big reward. And
yeah,
like a lot of times you think about it in a romance, right? We see it very often. Like this is abuse, like this is abuse. And but you can see it in professional relationships as well. So you can see this in employee to employee dynamics. So my colleague, maybe there's a power imbalance. Maybe they're a level or two higher than me. Maybe we're equals. And you can also see it really often in employee and employer relationships. So that boss, like that boss who gives you little bits of the good, but often is kind of, I don't know, horrible to you, devalues your work. But at times it's, oh, you did such a great job on this. Like, I love this. Then the next time you do it, it's crap. Like, I don't
It
know why
makes
you
me
did
wonder,
this.
how do you know though? Because like, it makes me think of certain terms that have become very predominant within the HR world, like quiet quitting or imposter syndrome. And the problem sometimes with bringing awareness to these terms is that people then assume that's what's happening, but they don't, like their gauge to it. It's a spectrum and it's not as severe and maybe not even that thing. So when we're talking about trauma bonding, how do you know, like, you just have an asshole boss versus it's the trauma bonding? Like, what are some examples, or even like the peer to peer that you said? How do you know if it's at that extent? And I assume then it's like remove yourself because it's very dangerous and toxic to your relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways to support yourself in getting out of that type of relationship. Obviously, the first in almost anything that you'll know is like acknowledging what it is. And I don't think a lot of people have the ability to acknowledge it on their own.
Well, I don't even think they know what to
Well,
acknowledge.
that,
Like I said,
why
like,
would they?
I've had bosses that were just like, how they talked to me about when I didn't succeed in something or when I failed. I mean, it was like bullyish, but was that trauma bonding? Like, I don't know. So like it's hard to distinguish.
Let's not um, totally confuse it with feedback, like constructive feedback,
Yeah.
or sometimes your boss snaps at you. I mean, it's happened to all of us. And I wouldn't say, oh my God, I'm trauma bonded with this person. Like, let's not
Yeah.
take it to the extreme, obviously. A lot of people who actually are in trauma bonded relationships, for example, in the workplace, might have a history of trauma bonding in their childhood. So it's like sometimes these are deep seated relationships that they've had, deep seated feelings from previous relationships, whether it's childhood between parents and a child or even a romantic relationship previously. I want to give an example though, which will maybe help with that. Like, how do you know and what do you
Yeah.
do? So I remember years back, and this was over 10 years back, a colleague and I both worked for someone, and that individual was really really difficult to work for and to be around. Okay. um, Trauma bond, the really interesting thing is that you're being devalued, you're being kind of torn down, you're still getting little tidbits here and there, which feels really great, and then you get discarded, and it's a cycle, right? So you go through that cycle, but it's really linked to a connection and a loyalty at the same time, which is the oddest thing, right? Why would you feel so connected and
Yeah.
loyal to an individual who gives you a little bit of the good, mostly bad, gets rid of you? So then you keep urging and keep looking for those goods, right? So I obviously was in this work situation, and I had this boss, and it wasn't really a thing for me. I mean, I don't that I'm aware of. I don't have any past trauma that put me in the same type of scenario as my colleague, but it seems they might have. And I actually didn't think about this till years later. And I said to that individual, why do you still seem to seek that person's approval so much? Like, why do you care? They condescend you constantly. They're belittling you. You've gone on and done so well with your career and whatnot. Like, why do you still go for lunch for this with this person, after having gone through this really difficult managerial relationship with them? Like, what does it matter? Like, let them loose. They're not treating you well. And that individual said to me, they remind me of my mother.
Ah,
And it was just like the oddest thing. And I said, so your mother treated you? And he
and you're almost in that moment like, did I step too far into it? But you're also shocked and you're like, let me help you.
and that was so odd. And I said, oh, and I said, that's how your parent treated you when you're younger. And they said, yeah, well, that's what I know. That's what I'm comfortable with. And obviously I felt really, really terrible. But I think for them too, it was like a moment that went off in their head. And I said, like, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry to hear that that's how your relationship with a parent was when you're younger. And it seems that you continue seeking these types of relationships, whether it's work, maybe doing that romantic relationships as well. I mean, it's super damaging. But I kind of said, hey, I'm sorry. But I said, you got to recognize this with this individual. They're putting you down. They're treating you poorly. They're getting what they need out of you. You're not getting anything out of
Yeah.
it. I said, why are you in this? Okay. So maybe there was an acknowledgement. Someone else brought it up, right? So I've brought it up to this individual, whether they decide to move forward in terms of, okay, I believe it. Like I see someone else has said it. Someone said it out loud. It's not just my feelings that I'm internalizing. I think that those individuals who are in those relationships need to acknowledge they obviously need to dig down into what's happened in your life that possibly might be causing you to seek these types of relationships that are super unhealthy
Yeah.
and they are abusive. Recognize that it's abuse. Like that is someone abusing you in a relationship, emotionally abusing you in a relationship. You have to understand those deeper attachments, though, go to
Yeah, and
therapy.
what I'm hearing is that, I'm reflecting on so many relationships, so I'm really like listening and taking it in. And so if you see me making a note, it's actually just because I'm like, personally, I want to think back on it as well because I think it's really good questions and really good awareness. So here's a few themes I hear though about how to know if you're in it. One, it's a pattern. You're in a cycle. It goes through, it gets better, it gets but it's worse. It's a pattern that keeps going through and nothing's breaking that pattern. That sounds like one, maybe evidence that you might be in it. The second one you said was it's not just critical feedback, it's like personal digs. It's like, so it's not factual, it's personal. And I think that's an important distinction. If you're in a relationship with someone and let's say at work, you don't complete something correctly, instead of saying, this wasn't written up to the standard we need to submit it to the board, let's say, it's like, are you just stupid? Do you not know how to write? Like,
Mhm.
I think there's a way to do it that is more personal and digs at the human versus
Mhm.
the factual and critical feedback that kind of sways to one side or the other one. The other one is what you just said, which is I guess what you put into a relationship and when you get out. If you're always feeling like you're not good enough, very negative thoughts, and you're getting pushed down, yet you're doing all these things to make that person rise up and be amazing just to
Yep.
seek a positive interaction, I think that's a trigger. It's like the power imbalance. And like obviously there's going to be power imbalances with reporting relationship. Someone
Mhm.
is responsible for you for your work, etc. But I think that they still owe you as a manager to create an environment where you're going to succeed, to give you positive feedback, to give you constructive so you're going to develop. And if it's all one way, that might be another data point. And the final one that I wrote down that I heard from you is like a lack of true communication. So there's like this sense of loyalty, you said, and connection, but it doesn't sound like they're actually having conversations of like, you are, you're putting me down, you're abusing me. Like, have that conversation and see how they react. Cause I'm assuming a narcissist is going to be like, you're out to lunch, fuck right off, da da da
Yep.
da. And there won't actually be any conversation. Whereas if they're not, it's like, wow, I'm so sorry I treated you like that. I disagree, maybe. So let's talk about it, but it's not lack of emotional support back. Does that make sense?
100%. And one thing I want to mention too, in terms of that narcissist in the relationship, they're gaslighting you. And what happens in a trauma bond is you actually gaslight yourself. You're constantly gaslighting yourself. You're constantly
Can you give an
rationalizing.
example of that? Like how would that like play out in real life?
So you're always rationalizing or justifying their behavior. You're like, "Oh God, I took it. I'm so emotional today. Like they didn't mean that. I'm definitely wrong here. Like it's a you thing. Like you're pushing it back onto yourself, and rather than acknowledging the true pain or the true hurt and abuse that
Yeah.
you're being caused by this narcissist, you're taking it all in. I'm the problem, it's not you. So like you're always in a situation like that. So all those like themes that you mentioned are incredibly important for people to think, recognize, go down deeper, figure out if there's anything from your past that might be pushing you into these types of relationships. I think therapy is important, and I
Huge.
think you need a guide. You need a guide through these types of things. They're going to help, and it needs to be someone who understands narcissism and trauma. So, if you want a specialist that can help you out with this, that's important. Um, I thought about one too, and it's the mindfulness of it all. Mindfulness, in that, stop making the justifications, stop making the rationalizations. But also, I've read this in a couple of different books. Make a list of all those things that aren't working for you in that relationship, all those hurtful things, all the things that are making you uncomfortable, and keep taking it out and keep adding to it, so that you can use that sometimes as some willpower to break some of that bond that you have there, because it might slowly chip away if you write it down and visually look at it often enough. You may be able to start breaking bits of that bond as well.
Do you think that on that, do you think you can actually break it and still have a working relationship? Or do you think the only way out is to exit it?
That's really interesting because, like, proximity, you we struggle with when we're in good proximity with someone. It's possible that we'll continue having a relationship. So whether you're in the full, like in a reporting relationship, I've seen someone who is in a reporting relationship, obviously going through this scenario, go and get another job, not in a reporting relationship, but still in real close proximity to this individual. So still always having that connection and that relationship with them, just on a little bit of a different scale. But I believe when they full on went and left, went and got a different job completely elsewhere, not in the same building, not in the same department, I bet you that trauma bond was broken, or for the most part, not in that continual cycle phase. I think it's going to be hard to break it if you're still there, if you're still working with that individual. And I don't think that you'll ever change that individual. And I think that that's one of those realizations is there's no jackpot at the end of it. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to win, you're going to lose, right? Um, and we've seen so many scenarios play out, especially if you're thinking an employee and their manager position. Are you ever going to win in that scenario?
Yeah. I mean, it's easy for me to think of past like romantic relationships where I'm like, oh yeah, there was definitely
I
some
was
like,
thinking of you when I was thinking of one of your romantic
yeah,
relationships
my
that you
first
had.
one that was
Yeah,
very long, that was so messed
this is
up
it.
and very toxic. And this just resonates so much. It's very one sided. It was very emotionally abusive. I do think
The power
narcissist
dynamic, like the
power
power
dynamic.
dynamic. I remember some of the things you used to say that individuals said to you, or the way they
Yeah.
treated you made you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, when I was writing some notes earlier, I was thinking about what's an example for Brit, and that's the first thing that
Oh,
came to me.
100%. 100%. And also the only way I was able to move on was to fully get out. But like the crazy thing is I spoke to that individual for 10 years after we broke up. Like that loyalty component,
Easy,
just
right?
seeking validation. Like I didn't
That's what
actually
it's all
want
about.
to be friends. I wanted validation. I wanted to know that I had finally made it. And it just shows how deep and long it goes. Um, and I mean, if I'm being really vulnerable here, I'm still working on it with therapy on how to not build that into my life and my relationships today. So I think it's really real. I think it's really important. And I can say from my own experience, anyways, when it's that evident, you will know. It's not just a few little things where you're like, oh, maybe. Like it's very clearly like, oh yeah, like this all lines up, all boxes get checked here. Um, and I hope that for anyone who's listening to this that is maybe thinking, oh, this might be the case in a personal relationship, in a romantic and a professional, don't get too overwhelmed because I'm sure it could be very scary. I would just take some time to reflect, like you said. Maybe talk to someone you trust that's always there to support you and have
Mhm.
a sounding board, or maybe look for a specialist that is really skilled in this if you're able to do. I would say just don't think you need to be alone with it. And
Yeah.
remember, the first step, like you said, is awareness of it. So, hallelujah, like good for you because you
Yes.
can't do anything until you realize you're in it.
100%. But yeah, let's shift over though for a second to something that's not quite as heavy for a minute.
Yeah.
I want to shift
Yeah, who
over.
knew the pod was gonna take it this way, eh?
It
When we were,
really
like, trauma bonding, I thought it was gonna be like, "Oh, you've been through some hard shit together and you bonded over it." I'm like, "I could talk about this for days."
So we are going to talk about that actually, because remember in my reference in the previous podcast, that's actually how I had referred to it. And we only got to this first part of the
Yeah.
podcast because I did my research and I was like, "Ooh, I was a little bit off when I was,
Yeah.
quoting or whatever the case may be." So now I want to talk about bonding over shared trauma.
Yeah.
And I think, Britt, you came in and you said to me earlier, I got a lot of stuff to kind of go off on this in terms of examples. I've got some stats that I want to chat about as well. But bonding over that shared trauma is like the shared experience of past.
Yeah.
So a lot of folks might say, and I'll give you a personal example. Sorry, not a personal example, but an example of a bonding over shared trauma. People who meet in group therapy sessions over
Yeah.
having dealt with abuse when they're younger or alcoholism. Okay, so there's that. But you can also bond over shared current trauma. And we
Yeah.
can bring that to the workplace as well. Any
Yeah.
examples on that, Brett?
Well, so it's funny because I mean, listen, there's definitely been shared experiences going through trauma with coworkers that I can talk about. But I also think like it's a really interesting spectrum. So we'll get into all of that because I think it's even just like shared bonding going through hard shit.
Yeah.
Like, so it might not always be trauma. It might be a really difficult moment that then all the benefits. And actually, before we get into that, I mean, let's just talk about human beings. So human beings are really social creatures. And what we crave in this world as being a human is actually social connection and social support. It's our most basic instinct is that we want that connection. And so, how do you get that? That's excuse me, the first question. I think when you think about the best connections, it's one that's filled with a trusting relationship, high communication, respect, support from each other. And that's where it gets interesting because I think the shared experience going through trauma or a hard time expedites all of those
Mm,
things. And if you put yourself back into those moments, you can think, oh, like I mean, going public at Shopify was one of the hardest things to do. We were up all days and nights trying to figure this out. It's a massive amount of work. You're constantly trying to fight the red tape of the machine, but you have to do things that are obviously regulated for public companies. But it was just nonstop and it was really, really hard. And, not everyone I worked with on that project or projects did I really know before. But I can tell you, going through that, staying at the office till midnight, ordering pizza in and just grinding to get it done. Those people I trust, I have connection with. If I saw them today, I would run up and give them a hug and I would feel comfortable doing that because we went through something so, so hard together that created all of that connection, all of that trust, all of that, shared beliefs around it. Um, I mean, there's other times where it was more trauma, where something bad happened, and you experience it together. One time, someone came in and robbed the petty cash at our old office. And it was sadly a homeless person from the streets got into the building, came in, but it was really scary at the time. And it, evaded our personal safety and space. And
mhm.
going through that with people, talking about it, supporting each other through it,
Yes.
expedited once again just that human connection. Um, and so I can think of, gosh, I can think of 100 different examples
Oh, yeah.
where bonding through those moments were what deepened those relationships. And obviously, through trauma isn't something you always want to create or experience, but you can actually create or build those experiences for the lesser, which is create hard times and people go
It
through it
does.
to expedite. And I think that's actually a really cool, healthy thing to do in your environment and culture.
Hard times, massive change,
Yeah.
big events, whatnot. Like you said, going public, like catastrophes, dealing with the
Yeah.
response to the pandemic, like how many probably days, nights were you up with several individuals trying to figure out what you guys were going to do for the company, for example, and vice
So
versa all around the world, right?
Yeah, so I went to Harvard for this executive leadership. I'm actually finishing it this year finally. But we get there. So it's 2 years, it's all remote besides like these 2 week stints where you're on campus in res with all these other people you've never met. Um and you're going deep on like the work. So they specifically design the environment where you are 8 people in one like shared space. You each have your own bedroom, but you have a shared kitchenette, and that's where you do all of your work. And they build the schedule so that you really from 6 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. you are with these people. You are sharing all experiences. You are doing group projects. You're doing everything. And that is from Monday to Saturday. And then Sunday is your free day. But generally, you're
You're with
spending
them.
time with these people
Yeah, you're
anyways.
going out.
And one of the reasons they do this, because I was asking all these questions, because I was like, I'm so curious on how they design the system of this. And they do it because one of their measurements of success is creating community and alumni, if you will, to connect going forward so that there's
Ooh,
a network once you leave Harvard for opportunities, for support groups, for everything. And so they say, we have 2 weeks to do this. So we're trying to accelerate this in every way possible. We know it's going to be hard. We purposely give you more work than you're capable of handling. We purposely do all this so it's extra hard and that you can bond faster with these people. And you're there with 8 people from all around the world. I mean, a few of them, we didn't speak the same language, like it was broken. And yet, I would reach out to them now and ask for help in a very hard time because of that experience we went through together, which is wild to
so
think
cool.
that 4 weeks in my whole life and I know someone at that depth. But if you think about it, when you go through hard shit, you have the emotions that you usually can hold back when you first meet someone. You know, I cried in front of them. I got angry in front of them. We had extreme laughing fits because we're delusional because we were so tired. Like you can go through so much more when the experience is heightened, which it's like a hack. It's a hack to a relationship. By the way, it can go the other way. You can hate someone because it just really doesn't work. But I think that it's a really interesting concept for leaders. You know, don't put them through war, but think about how you can utilize that.
Oh, put them through intense stuff. And like you said, you guys were so fully emerged or submerged with each other that you created these incredibly intense bonds at an extremely quick pace. Now, exactly what Harvard said, we give you too much. We give you too much to handle. But it's like one of those things with work and people say always give the thing that needs to be done quick or urgently or well to the person who's got the most work, right? Because
Yeah.
they're gonna go and nail it. So what they were doing with you guys is they were actually boosting your productivity like to the 10th degree. And because it was so difficult as well, maybe you did manage to get
Yeah.
it all, maybe you didn't. You guys were going to figure out a way together and go through a lot of those challenges together. And I
Yeah.
think that, you see
And the
that.
feeling of succeeding those challenges,
Well,
like,
exactly.
So I think the bonding hormone, is it oxytocin? Did I say that right?
Oxytocin.
Yeah. So that release is actually like dubbed the bonding hormone. And when it comes out is when you're going through really hard things and you succeed with people.
Right.
And it creates that sense, like, you know, when you finish a really hard project and you actually feel like everyone's supported and it's like, oh, this team is amazing. I feel so supported. We are so good. Like our teamwork was excellent. We're running on a high. That that feeling that you get, that release, is what bonds you for a long time after.
Absolutely.
It charges up that battery, if you will.
That's super interesting because I'm actually going to bring back I'm going to connect to that in a future episode that I want to talk about in terms of happiness and
Okay.
how you actually get true happiness and how it's formed with people through memories of people. I mean, I'm not happy when I'm, necessarily just sitting at home drinking wine. I might be an alcoholic. I'm happy when I'm somewhere drinking wine with my best friends and we're laughing and we're having the best time. But we'll dig into that at a later time. But it's interesting how these
Yeah.
all connect with each other to change from being euphoric or being excited to being actually happy. And when we're happy, we're possibly more productive. And when we're
100% we are.
productive, it's good for the company.
Well, and this is why, like, full circle, duh, it's like more people,
Yeah.
more problems. Yes, but humans are the most beautifully complex individuals that you can actually start to understand. If you can start to understand a piece of it, you can create environments that really, curate beautiful work, thriving work, like you
Yep.
said. It's just that you can't think of them as a robot. Like it's as simple as that. It's realizing that it's curated and it's, intentional. There's a reason why Gallup's Q12 engagement survey asked, do you have a best friend at work? It's because having a best friend at work is highly correlated to engagement.
It is.
Knowing that you can call someone, a coworker, and tell them your deepest, darkest feelings, to trust them, to feel supported by them, to share a laugh. I mean, it's the biggest retention. Are you going to like,
Absolutely. I mean, how many people have said, the only and we've all had jobs like this anyways, but how many people have said the only reason I get up in the morning and go to this job is because so and so is going to be there, or when I get to work and I notice that they're sick or they're on vacation for a week. It's like so depressing, because you use those really strong bonds to like get through the day sometimes because
yeah,
things are hard. It's like soul saving bonds.
yeah,
And I think it's really interesting because what we can accomplish, and if organizations take more time acknowledging the happiness, the productivity, the increase in retention, what we can accomplish when we channel our energies together is so great,
oh
right?
yeah,
It's so great. And another little funny one that I looked at, as well as one of these interesting stats of, well, if my work bestie or my work wife or my work husband leaves, like I'm leaving too. 23% of people say that they would leave their
yeah.
job if their connection, if their bond is no longer there. And I'm not going to lie, I've said that before in
I've
my
heard
life
you
too.
say it. I was
I
gonna
have
say,
totally said
but you
that.
know what? Like, this is what's so cool about the human aspect of understanding. Like, it's like anthropology, it's sociology, it's going back thousands and thousands of years, which is humans like, it's how we started this. They like connection. They
Yep.
like the social support, the social connection. We're not meant to be on our own. That's why, generally speaking, when we're alone for long, extended periods of times, we get depressed. Like we actually lose our mind a bit. And
Mhm.
so when you can create that within a workplace, just like you want to create that within your life, we're talking about trauma or bonding through trauma experiences or hard times. We do that day in and day out through our life with our friends. That's why you select who you want around you, who you trust, who
Absolutely.
you support, all these things. You spend so much time at work. So, of course, you want the same thing there. Sometimes, as great as your best friends are, they don't understand the nuances. They're not in the same workplace, they don't know the same characters. And so, having that support system or relationship at work, I think, is so critical. And it's going to be
Absolutely.
different than the personal side, but it's going to be just as valuable in a different way.
But it's, yeah, it's fulfilling on that kind of aspect of your life. And I think that's demonstrated. For example, I come home from work and I talk to Gary and I'm like, oh, this happened and that happened, and he doesn't know the acronyms, and I'm kind of blazing through everything, and I know he's following, I know he understands there's something difficult that's going on, but he doesn't quite get it, right? So if I go home and I talk to my work bestie and they're even open to me chatting with them, work day's done, I'm like, do you have like 2 minutes? I need to tell you what happened today, and I'm just fuming over it. They can follow word for word what's going on in my examples. They can offer me guidance and advice. I
Yeah.
don't have to give them any sort of context. And luckily, the good thing about them as well is they're giving me good constructive feedback as well. It's not just a bitching session, right? So like if I say that in terms of going home, and yeah, Gary can help me out, but he's not going to know all of the things.
Yeah.
He wasn't there. He doesn't know the quirks and the weirdness of certain folks, or like the difficulty of some of the files, or the demands that are being asked, and the no resources and all those things. Like he only knows
Yeah.
what I tell him. He doesn't get to experience it too. So I think
Yeah.
it's totally fair. I think you have to have those relationships at your work. That's what unfortunately, for some people who don't find their work fulfilling, it's probably the only thing that keeps them going on the
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah, and hopefully you can get both. That would be ideal.
Ideally.
One thing I think would be fun because I feel like we've talked about so many things. Like the TLDR, it's like too long didn't read. I think we should come up with another one, which is TLDL, like too long didn't listen. So, what is our key takeaways? TLDL. One,
Yeah,
no one should be in a trauma bonding relationship. It's extremely unhealthy. And if you start to realize that you are, seek support, seek,
exactly.
some growth on it and try and get out of it. And I really hope you can. Bonding through trauma, bonding through hard experiences is very different. And I actually think there's a lot of value that can come from that. And that is where I think either in yourself and in your relationships, you can really look to that and leverage that supporting system and trust. Or else, if you're a leader in an environment, I think you can curate that environment to build some bonding, to create, retention, to create engagement, to create happiness. And I think that's fair game. And I would say go for it.
You totally stole my TLDL. I was going to give you that second
No,
part.
I didn't.
If you're a leader, curate the, well, I wasn't going to say curate because I'm not as smart as you. But I was
Well,
like, okay, here's my chance to jump in. And you just flip it nailed the whole TLDL. Perfect. Amazing, Britt. Thank you
you
for that.
like TLDL? Well, it's only because I'm a good student from you.
TLDL. I know. No, no, stop it. Oh, I'm glad you've learned something, though. This is
Oh,
amazing.
very much. I might have to go to extra therapy tonight just to figure out that, work from my earlier life. But hey,
I'll send you a bunch of the podcast links that I was listening to leading up to
oh
this
gosh.
to try and
You know
understand.
what? Maybe on that note, we add a few to when we post this. We'll do a little trigger warning disclaimer and we'll add some links for people to absorb on their own time.
So I will add some links to some articles I reviewed, but one of the links to the clinical psychologist, I was watching quite a few of her videos on narcissism. It actually, I read her disclaimer down below. It says you're not allowed to link to any of her videos,
Oh,
which I thought was really interesting, actually. And because I was
yeah.
going to also tag her in this one, I was going to do a
Can
hashtag.
we not link to her videos and just tag her and people can be smart and Google on their own?
Well, like just by tagging her, you mean?
Yeah.
Like rather
Like
than
go to
tagging
this
her.
person and look into her stuff. She's
Well, maybe
brilliant.
maybe we can do that. Yeah, maybe we could do that. We'll
Okay.
look at that
Anyways,
because
we're
I found her
troubleshooting while
videos.
people are listening. We
we're
digress.
just we're just figuring out how we're going to bring this all to you. But I found her stuff really really good, and I watched probably 3 or 4 videos over the last couple of days, and it really helped me to
We
understand this
should
topic.
we should do a whole episode on narcissism.
There's so much to say about
I know.
that. Holy shite.
Sometimes I'm like, what about if I'm a narcissist and I don't even know it? Because I don't think a lot of narcissists realize it, right?
But I think we're all somewhat narcissistic in various ways. Like you
Yeah.
can't say like on the scale of 1 to 100, I'm zero narcissist.
Nope.
100%, everyone has a bit of narcissism in them, in certain ways or about certain things or in certain relationships. I wouldn't say that we all bring the same self to each different relationship. There's no way.
Yeah.
So like hopefully you're
Anyways, for
not on the
another pod,
higher end. Hopefully you're not on the higher end of the narcissism
is
scale.
there a quiz I can take? It makes me think of like glamour quizzes. Are you a narcissist? Check A, B, or C.
Oh my god. Oh, I'll tell you, I did a personality test a couple of years ago, and it didn't say I was a narcissist. I mean, it didn't say that flat, right? But I just interpreted the characteristics I got. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
That's
But
alarming.
then it said I would be a really great leader. So I think maybe you do have to at least be somewhat of a
Yeah.
narcissist to be a leader.
I
Like
think
just
you
not
do.
too much. Just not too
Yeah.
much. So,
It's a
anyways,
fine line.
it's a fine line.
Anyways, let's drink.
Should we do wine time?
Yeah.
Perfect.
See you in a sec.
See ya.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Cheersies.
Oh, I like your champagne flute. It's a very pretty one. I got these ones. Where is this
Oh,
one?
those are
Oh,
cute.
yeah. Yeah, not bad.
Those look super similar style to the new wine glasses I just got in terms of the curve of them and like the flatter bottom and then
Did you
a
get
tapered top.
shots Diesel?
I mean, I don't know what the brand was. I got them at Home Sense. Okay. But
Okay.
cute. No, yeah, I've had these for a million years. I probably got them when I got married as like a gift or something. And I
Yeah,
probably
that's
only got
good.
like 4 left out of like a 6 pack because I keep breaking stuff.
Uh, okay, so today we got some bubbly coming in
It's
from
that lovely. It might be early in the day for some, but not for all. So we can still enjoy it.
I
I've
feel
got
like
your
bubbly is the most approachable alcohol to drink earlier in the day.
I love that she just said approachable. Yes, it is approachable. And you know what? It doesn't have to
Shout
be a
out to
mimosa.
Shannon.
Shout out to Shannon. It's a mimosa minus the citrus. Perfect. Okay, great. So it's just an altered mimosa. So it's more of it's a prosecco. So it's a prosecco. It's the Blue Giavello. I don't know if most
Oh, I've
people
had that
probably.
one.
Yeah, it's nice. Most people have probably had this. I mean, for me, it's nice. It's oh, it's actually it's an extra dry, which makes sense.
Yeah,
You
good,
would like
good.
that. That I definitely would have had this with you a couple of times. It's an
Yeah.
Italian one, crisp sparkling wine with smooth, refreshing finish. Excellent as an appetizer or a breakfast wine. No,
See? I
no,
mean,
it
oh,
doesn't say that.
I was like, "Oh my god, it says that?" I was
No,
so excited.
no. It does say appetizer with salads, light pasta, meats. It doesn't say breakfast, but it could. But it
Yeah.
could, right?
I mean, I put a little lettuce in my brunch, like a side salad, so there you go,
Nice.
you're
Side
welcome.
stuff. Just slap a little bit of romaine under your
Yeah.
poached egg, and you're good to go. Obviously,
Yeah,
so
put a
then this
spinach
is.
down, just 1 leaf.
And you know what? You know what's interesting, which I'm enjoying about this, is it says enjoy anytime, celebration or casual, with friends or on your own. I don't know that you should be saying to enjoy this on your own. I mean, that sounds depressing and maybe a sign of alcoholism, but or I guess like maybe I won't say that because I'm going to put myself into a category that I can't get myself out of.
It's interesting, there's so many things out there right now about, alcohol and how bad it is for you, like, I feel like in the past 3 years, it's just been like, "Don't drink alcohol," whereas before that, it was like, "Don't smoke," and, like,
It's a new thing.
yeah, like, is it that bad? Like, when I read, it is, and when I, like, look at my Whoop and all the data, the health data, it's like I essentially, if I have drinks, I just pass away on my health data. It's like, you don't have a heartbeat and you're not sleeping. Is it older age? Like, it's just really frustrating
No, it's got to
as
be
I
old
take another
age.
sip.
It's got to be getting older. It can't be the
No.
wine. But I
No.
will say I have increased in like belly fat over the last 2 years, and it's probably these bad boys. Like I'm not
Yeah.
even gonna lie. Like I can't. That must be the explanation. It's the
You gotta
sugar.
do some wall Pilates.
I know. You know what? And don't laugh at me for a second. I worked out yesterday and I worked out this morning.
Good for
Yep,
you.
I
What
did
did you
it.
do?
I did the elliptical, so we have elliptical in the basement, so I did that for, like, 10 or 12 minutes, didn't go too hard, and then I did the rower because we have a rowing machine as well, so I did that for a little bit, and then I did some light ab workout because we have one of those little ab cruncher
Oh,
situations.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Is this all in preparation for your Dominican trip?
Yeah, well, and because I just wanna be a healthier, happier
Okay.
me, obviously, but
Yeah.
yes, I I keep looking going, "Oh, I won't pack any 2 pieces, it's fine, I'll just pack one-piece bathing suits."
You look fabulous. You fucking wear that bikini, girl. Like,
Well,
I think when people are like, "Don't wear something," because like, you wear it. You look good.
you know what? It's not because I don't think people don't think I look good. It's just more because I'm like, Chels, like it's coming on there in the belly situation. I need to like reverse this or like stop it. Like what am I going to look like when I'm 40 if I keep on this route drinking this
Well,
drinking this sparkling wine?
the nectar of the gods.
The nectar of the god. Anyways, enough about me. I do want to say shout out because one of my employees actually gave this to me for Christmas because she's so
Aw.
lovely and kind, and she always
What do
gives
you
me.
rank it?
Oh yeah, rank. Actually, I really like this. It says it's extra dry, but I
Which
actually
I was.
don't find it that dry to be honest.
Huh.
Um, I would give it an 8. I enjoy
Oh,
it.
good.
It's not a really expensive one either, which is always nice. I like the blue bottle; it's pretty.
Yeah, you could
Um,
do some cool things with that afterwards, like a vase.
and it's not your super cheap one that you would buy at the liquor store like for 13 bucks, and it's not like your Veuve that you're gonna drop 80
Yeah.
bucks on. It's in the like low 20 range, just
Yeah.
below, which I think is a very approachable price.
Yeah, very approachable in all
Very,
ways. Love
very
it.
approachable.
Also, when you first started saying that, I was like, "Are you gonna just slander your employee who gave you this?" The way you were like,
Oh no,
It's not." And I was like, "Uh-oh, pull
no,
back," but
it's a
you
good.
actually finished that out nicely.
I've bought it myself, like back in the day too,
Yeah,
and
we've had it for sure.
she
Yeah.
knows how much enjoy
Also,
wine.
I love a coworker who knows to buy their boss booze. You know what I mean?
Smart.
Like,
I
go to
should.
the goods.
I'm wondering if I should be concerned that anyone who bought me any sort of gift, like work related, gave me alcohol.
Well, they
Well,
listen to the podcast.
Wow. Like, yeah. Or I just talk about wine too much. But anyways, that's okay. We
I
can
mean,
all have our things.
yeah, listen, you're not
Passion.
shoving chocolate down your mouth all the time.
Yep,
You're
that's true.
just sipping on some booze. There you
Yeah,
go.
nothing wrong with it. Anyways, what do
How's
you?
your week been?
Oh my gosh, my week's well, it's just busy. Busy work's been really, really busy. I'm helping out my boss while they're away right now, so that a little bit more work, more meetings, more responsibility, more digging into other people's stuff that I don't normally get to look
Yeah.
into, which actually is fun.
Yeah. I was gonna
Learning
say
every
you'd
day.
love that shit.
Yeah, yeah, I do kind of. But busy, and the kids with their activities. It seems we're at a
Yeah, and they
birthday
had
party.
Friday off school, eh? They had a PD day.
They had a PD day, which was great because your sister in law took
Yep.
one of my kids for the entire day, and then she cooked me a beautiful dinner. So, like,
Well,
I
look at
can't
that.
complain.
I FaceTimed them, like, we were chatting with, Carter, Logie, and her, and, they were both on their devices, and she's like, "I was just outside for so long, I tuckered them out," and I was like, "You go, girl," but they were
Yeah,
so cute, just like little BFFs hanging out beside each other. I was like, "Oh."
kept each other pretty busy, and I
Yeah.
mean that worked for us because I was in the office until 4:35 almost,
Yeah.
and it was
Then you
great.
get all
But
the
what have you been doing though?
My parents have been here, so we've been doing just a lot of, outdoor things. It's actually colder right now. I don't know what it is in Ottawa right now, but it's only, like, 12 degrees here, so it's pretty
Oh,
chilly.
okay,
Um,
yeah, it's chilly.
yeah, so we've been doing some outdoor things, going shopping. Me and my mom went to the market yesterday downtown in Old Scottsdale, bopped around. It's just nice having them here. We went for a really nice dinner last night.
How is it?
It was so good. It was
Yeah.
so good. They
Oh,
loved it.
good. And
Yeah.
I thought Pam was going to join us for wine time. Like, where is she?
Oh, she's gonna make a debut when she's ready.
Oh, okay.
When she's ready. It won't be today, but she will. She had an idea that for Mother's Day we should get all of our mothers on and they'll just talk shit about us. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
"Well,
Listen, I listen, if we get my mother on, she will talk shit about me. So like there's gonna be way too much information disclosed if we go with
it would
that
be pretty
idea.
hilarious though to like interview our mothers." Like it
Oh,
would just be, oh,
that's actually kind of a cool idea.
yeah. My
Maybe
mom had this idea. She's like, "Why don't I just sit in the back corner of your frame?" So like if it was like this, and she's like, "I'll just sit there and knit and give you eyes when you say inappropriate
oh
things."
my
She's
God.
like, "When you swear, my what did she say? My skin curdles." And I was like, "You like it.
She
That's a
swears all
lie."
the time. She
I know
swears all
she's a
the
potty
time.
mouth.
And it seems a bit voyeurism, but anyways, if that's what you're into,
I'll tell her that. She won't even know what that means
it
probably.
kills me. Tell her to look up. No, I'm just kidding.
No, never. Never. Oh, I love my mom though, and my dad. So it's been really good. It's been a nice week. They're here for another 3 days.
Yeah.
Um, and then they leave and Scotty's bestie comes up for 4 days. So it's
During the
busy.
Super Bowl, right? During the Super Bowl, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do the golf tournament and it's his birthday, so he'll have his best friend here, which is fun.
Oh, that's gonna be so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it helps you get through, setting a little milestone here and there to get through the winter months. Like Brit's
exactly.
not I mean, she's not in sunny, hot Arizona. She's in rainy, cool Arizona right now. So,
Listen, it's okay, that's the other thing. Fucking talking about rain, we've had like insane rainstorms.
ah,
We have 4 leaks in the house. Like,
mm,
Arizona's not made for this. So, yeah, it hasn't been a great weather-wise for the past 2 weeks of,
no, eh?
just, like, frustration, the house that never ends building. Like,
Does it say like when it's gonna come out of that a little bit?
well, no, so next week, like, the week coming up is the golf tournament that we go to, and it's supposed to rain, like, 3 of the days. So,
Oh,
I bought us ponchos on Amazon
oh,
today.
gross.
I know.
That
I
sucks.
know.
You got like
So, we'll
rain
see.
boots or something, like
But
wellies?
I feel like you walk around so much, I feel like, rain boots would be so uncomfortable.
Well, you gotta buy something comfortable that's at least waterproof, right?
Well, do you have any tips?
Well,
I
don't
can
you
wear my
have, like,
golf shoes that are
golf
waterproof.
shoes? Yeah, don't you have your golf
Yeah,
shoes,
I could
like
do
the leather
that.
ones?
Yeah, I might do that. That's smart.
You
Yeah,
need
I think I
something,
will.
else you're
Mind you,
gonna
they
have
have,
wet
like, spikes
socks.
underneath. I'm gonna be walking on, like, the pathway with spikes, like, doink, doink, doink,
Oh,
doink.
no, order some, like, non-spiky ones.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, we'll figure it out. It'll be fun. I hope that the weather is just, like, a quick little rain and then it goes.
Yes, we're all crossing our fingers for you.
Yeah, there we go.
It's great.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
just, like, sabotaging me from the other
I
side.
am not.
Rain, rain.
No, I want you to have lovely weather. If you're gonna be all the way out there, I hope you get at least what you went for.
Okay, good, good. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I love you. Drink your wine. Any other, things you wanna add?
No, no, I'm pretty good.
Okay,
Drive
well,
safe,
cheers.
everyone. Drink responsibly, right?
Drink alone or with people? Only with the blue bottle, though.
There you go.
Okay, cheers. Love ya.
Yeah. Bye.